I am happy to learn that the village biography experiment we started in the year 1994 has gone beyond 2 decades, and maybe it's about 3 decades, and now it's gaining momentum. And I must congratulate you all for taking this initiative forward. And you have a curiosity to know how it was conceptualized, what compelled me to think of village biography, and whether it happened in a planned way or it was just accidental, or instantly I thought of something. It has got a little history. In 1994, I was engaged in some other activities, and that activity was disrupted because of various reasons, so I had to intervene. And then I was visiting an area in the Ganjam district of Odisha, Bhanjanagar, and I was in the company of my close friend, who is no more now, Professor Amulya, principal of Khetre-Barapur Anchalika Science College, who was spearheading the people science movement work in that area. Then we visited some villages. We found the youth. We interacted with them. Then I was reminded of my last 3-4 year experience while traveling across the state and staying in the villages, interacting with villagers. Those times I could myself notice how the gap between the youth and the adults was widening, and I could see an alienation process. Those who are getting educated, they are getting alienated from the roots, from the villages, from the family, from the neighborhood, from the villages as a whole. And that was disturbing me, that was upsetting me, because if the alienation continues for a long period, it will not be beneficial for any village. So when I visited with Amulya and saw the same youth and faced some of the tough questions they asked me about the future, I thought of organizing them into a camp, sit with them for 2-3 days, do the brainstorming to understand what was there in their mind, and that is how things were arranged without any budget. Local hosting village hosted youth from neighboring villages. We didn't have to spend anything. I was sleeping in a school with half of the roof gone, and where we used to organize these academic activities. I called academic, which sounds sophisticated, but it is not purely academic. It's a knowledge exercise. It was an exercise to know each other, to learn from each other. And there itself I realized while interacting with them that some of them are college graduates, some of them are into the college, some of them are school pass outs. Anytime you ask any question about the country, about the state, they would struggle but tell you something. So the far away places, they know something or the other. But when I put them some questions about the villages, their own respective villages, they couldn't tell me much. Like, how the village was named, and who were the first settlers, how, what kind of economy the village has, and what kind of livelihoods they practice, and what kind of diversity is there in those livelihoods. None of the questions they could answer me. Not a single young boy could answer it. So that was quite disappointing for me. But before that, when I had conducted another exercise engaging them in collective story writing, I could get a sense of what was there in their mind. I could realize that potentially they are very good, and if that potential is cultivated properly, maybe they will do much more, and that will be benefiting the villages only. So then, when the next opportunity came, we started experimenting something called Village Biography in a village called Biripur, when NSS camp of Anchalika Science College of Khetrevarapur, of which Amulya was principal, started, and so many young students came, and they settled there for 3-4 days in a camp. We tried an experiment of village biography with them. They were divided into different groups. They went into the village to know about the naming of the village, the culture of the village, all the things that kept haunting my mind. We developed a questionnaire, and questionnaire was shared in different groups. So different groups of young college students went into the village, and they spent 2-3 days in the village. And in one evening, when the presentation session started, they were so excited to speak. I could see that excitement in them. Everybody was trying to speak. Every group was trying to speak fast, as if they had a lot of things to share, and they have discovered so much. They want to know, they want us to know that they have become really much more knowledgeable than what they were before the camp began. And they started sharing. And two interesting thing I can tell you, the naming of Biripur, why I mention this again and again in many places, precisely because of one reason, that brings into focus what we had pre-Green Revolution and what we have now post-Green Revolution. So Biripur, they discovered, used to cultivate lot of grams. That is how it was named, and that was happening in pre-Green Revolution period. So the village was named as Biripur, and later on, when only 2-3 varieties were cultivated as part of Green Revolution, all the pulses, cereals, and all other crops, millets, they all disappeared. And it became a kind of monoculture of paddy, and that too, hybrid, high-yielding varieties. These young boys didn't know. They didn't know much about Green Revolution. They were all, praising Green Revolution like anything, because that made the country self-reliant in food grain production. But when they knew this story, they were all shocked. And it was told to them by a very senior villager who was of around 85 years old. And interestingly, he passed away immediately 15 days after the camp. And had they not met him and collected this part of the story of their village, perhaps nobody would have known. Because from my experience, I know, when I kept asking about the naming of my village to my near and dear ones, my grandparents, my father, his brothers, nobody could convincingly tell me how my village was named. Maybe they didn't ask this question to their elders, the way we don't ask questions to our elders. Culture of questioning is entirely missing in our society. So therefore, because we never asked such questions, we never got the answer. No school encourages this. The basic fundamental questions they could have put in the mind of the young children, was to know more about their villages and share those things with other children. But in India's education system, this is not part of your learning. You learn something like, the agriculture students learn soil science um, from a book written by an American author, not even an Indian author. So this is how, we realized in the camp when people were presenting, young students were presenting, so many things came up. And they could themselves know what kind of economy the village has got, what kind of caste systems they have, who owns how much, and what is the situation of the poor in the village. And this was quite enlightening for them, which is why they were excited to share with us, and even they didn't know that it would go down to dawn times while narrating, every group narrating their own experiences. So that inspired me much. I learned so much from them. Then I thought of expanding the idea to other zones. We tried quite unsuccessfully because accepting Amulya, I couldn't convince the other people who were working with me that this concept is very useful and this is education. You don't treat it as something extracurricular or outside education. This is education, and our children should learn about it. And there were very few takers, and those who tried in Kalahandi and Keonjhar, they did it for some time, and the whole idea got abandoned because I had to withdraw for some compelling reasons. And the whole process restarted again in 2005 when I discussed, I had met him earlier, Professor Sudhir Pattnaik, the founder director of Institute of Mathematics. And the Institute of Mathematics and Applications in Bhubaneswar was organizing a National Rural Talent Search program for mathematics among school students. So since we knew each other, we were meeting regularly, we were discussing regularly. And there was another person who is still guiding us, Professor Birendra Naik, with whom I was associated in the 90s, early 90s, as part of People's Science Movement. And we were doing some Hamara Desh program. He used to come and speak very fluently with conviction on certain issues. So our association had got strengthened. He was also Professor of Mathematics associated with Institute of Mathematics. So that gave me an opportunity to share some of the questions we had evolved in earlier experiments and share with them to try with school students, those who were practicing math, and with the help of their respective teachers. That is how about 85 village biographies could be produced from across the state. And that was quite exciting for everyone who participated in the math talent search program. Professor Sudhir Pattnaik himself, known for his progressive attitudes, got quite excited. And Professor Birendra Naik, he never let you know what he thinks about the work, but he was visibly happy with the outcome. And then that is how things started. And then I encouraged Swayamprava Parhi, who had just entered the Samadrusti media group, and she had taken the responsibility of Samadrusti Mukta Vidyalaya. We started later, but then Lok Vigyan Parishad, the people science outfit we had floated under the chairmanship of Professor Sudhir Pattnaik. We in that Parishad thought of publishing some biographies into book form, and Swayamprava was the assistant editor of that publication. See, it's carefully selected after going through every biography, about 15-20 biographies, and a book could come out, and a small book, and that is still there, and anyone can see that. I was suggesting them to make an English version of the booklet and make it available to people so that they can understand what kind of questions were asked to students and what kind of answers they have gathered. And it would be important to tell you a writer here, though we call them affectionately, just to encourage them as student biographers or student historians, it shouldn't be taken literally as, historians or biographers. It's an exercise which is quite involving, quite engaging for young students. But there is no desire to romanticize the whole work because this is an educational experiment where everybody learns, not only them, those who record. But one thing we could notice, whenever it was done, even later on when the COVID period started, Swayamprava herself did some really good, amazing work. And before that, Lohi Academy had taken the initiative to be with us. Together we had done some grassroots journalism training courses. We had made it mandatory that, in our selection, we'll ask everybody to write 2-3 pages about their own villages, and on the basis of those writings, we'll select students. And later on, when they finish their course, they will submit dissertations entirely on their own villages. And some of them had done it also quite well, and quite inspiring, quite educative, quite informative. And that makes you think several times, what we need to do in our education, where our pandits or scholars or so-called wise people never bothered to think. So, it doesn't only help students to learn about their own village, things that are there in the village, in terms of history, in terms of resources, in terms of food grain, what is there, what has disappeared, all those. But it also helps in reconnecting. The alienation process that starts when the child comes to the school, and parents, elders, everybody, gets involved in giving a feeling to him or her that the real learning starts when you enter into a building and when you leave your home or village. And so the disconnect starts from that phase. And, through this process, the students return to the villages, return to the elders, return to their grandparents, return to their uncles, and make them feel that they know much more things than what these students actually, get trained or get taught in the schools. Like how the village was named, what was growing in the villages, what are the status of economy then, and what kind of cultural diversities or musical diversities they used to have. And when it comes to food, food is so important for them. And food is disappearing from the food plate. The diversity of food they used to have once upon a time is very fast disappearing from the food plate. All those things, that the feeling of loss makes them realize what they have actually lost, how they have lost. The next question comes, and what needs to be done to restore that. All these questions, keep coming to the young mind, and then they start thinking about, what needs to be done. Because in a caste-driven society where culture of questioning is entirely missing for the last more than 1000 years, suddenly questioning will start, we cannot think of. And this is a simple, humble process where, through this process only, one can cultivate how to raise questions. And the most important and fundamental questions related to one's life and livelihood and the future of the village itself, future of civilization as a whole. So, I think whatever work has been done so far Forget about that. What needs to be done, it is better to focus on it. And whatever people are collecting, wherever, who is helping, doesn't matter. And those things need to be preserved in the villages. And I was discussing with my colleagues overseas how to develop village heritage center, where all the materials will be kept and will be added on every year by senior students, by young people, by teachers, by scholars. Everyone has got an opportunity to get involved. Like if you write about the history of paddy or rice in your village, history of millets in your village, history of mandia, another millet in your village, you get to know what kind of food diversities, huge food diversity you used to have, and what needs to be done to restore that. And not only your food culture, your collective culture, something you do together. Before the digital TV era, electronic media appeared, people were sitting together. There was occasion to sit together, discuss together. And the village biography writing itself, brought them together after a long gap. In spite of Android phones, electronic media, people could come and sit in one place and discuss about their own history. So the collective discussions, collective sharing, collective living, the importance of those things could be also inculcated through the process of village biography writing. And this is not just a rhetoric, it is happening, it's experienced, and one just needs the willpower to do it. And I think this can happen. And I would say that the more biographies should be written, not only of food grains, of mountains, of rivers, of streams, all together they are part of a larger ecosystem which is in danger today. It doesn't matter how many workshops, seminars, and June 5 Environment Day programs you organize, but to develop a culture of appreciating, understanding nature, and developing a resolve within to protect it, to preserve it, to promote it, will not happen through all these events. You require a process like this to get involved together with all others so that the ecosystem is preserved and kept, at least as it is, where it is today, for the future generations, for the future children to come and be part of it. So this looks very simple, but if you do it seriously, honestly, with commitment, I think this will create a wonderful history. Just imagine, 6 lakhs villages together developing their own biographies in a country, and in the whole world, I don't know how many villages are there. So you create a massive knowledge base which is not created by any scholars, any scientists, any experts, but people who are living in the villages, who are coming from the village, who have roots in the villages, who are learning, and it's their own collective work, then that brings the difference. I think we should, appreciate the roots and the implications together, so that we will be able to create very good village biographies and any additional biographies required in the process. If you plan village heritage centers, you can preserve this, and you can every year add on any extra biography you write involving any seniors. So I think I must congratulate all people who are engaged in the process, who are thinking of doing something unique, and this shouldn't be taken as a patent somebody has possessed, so that he or she needs to be acknowledged or taken into account while doing all this. It has to be done with all seriousness and commitment everywhere, wherever it is possible. Whosoever wants to do this, it should be done, and that is my primary concern. So I must thank you all those who are engaged in this exercise in whatever form. It's not a small thing. You are creating history. Thank you.